5:32 p.m. and I'm calling to order this regular meeting of the Fargo Board of Education. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And before we move to approval of the agenda, Robin, you're going to add something?
Yes, I would like to add an HC addendum to this agenda.
Okay, thank you. And now I will look for approval of the agenda with the HC addendum.
So moved.
Okay, Greg, we have a motion from Greg. And a second?
Second.
And a second from Ally. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposition, same sign. And that motion passes 9-0. We next will move to the recognition of the audience. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public on topics included on tonight's meeting agenda. If there is a topic an individual would like to address with the board that is not on the meeting agenda, we invite those to be shared with board members via email, phone, or the form available on our website. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and home school district for the record. The board values and welcomes courteous, respectful, and civil behavior from all speakers and people attending the board meeting. The board expects speakers to limit statements to those relating to the operations of the board and refrain from comments of a personal nature, unrelated to the operation of the board. Obscene language and disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. The board requests speakers not be defamatory, abusive, harassing, or unlawful. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond to or debate issues in this forum. This evening, one speaker has signed up. Each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Upon conclusion of the allotted time, a chime will sound, and the speaker is asked to conclude. If necessary, a final chime will sound 15 seconds later, signifying the end of the speaker's time at the podium. And I will call our one and only speaker this evening, and I believe that is Mayor Mahoney.
This is opposite to what I normally do. Thank you very much for having me speak here tonight. The school board and the city have been working side by side on tax exemptions for many years, and on it, what's basically happened is we have a tax incentive committee that looks over the proposals. We make our recommendations, and oftentimes those recommendations then are passed through and we go forward. Over time, we've changed how we do our things, and basically what we do is we always were a little bit curious about, is it but-for test? Does it meet the but-for test? Can this project go ahead without the but-for test? So whenever we've done that, we've had a group look into that for us, give a report, and in that report, you'll see a thorough analysis of it and how it goes. But I recognized in visiting the other day that basically what happens, we have not really been in front of this board much, and we haven't really showed what we do or explained to what you do. We also have not explained our policy. So our policy, it took 2 years for us to come up with our policy. And when we did that, we basically have come up with a policy, which I think is pretty sound, but would like to at some point explain it to the board and explain how we do things. Tax exemptions in the city of Fargo are less than 2% of total tax value. So a lot of times people think it's 20, 30% of all your taxable value. It's really not. We've seen a decline in the amount of projects coming before us, and we always dislike it when we cannot have an apartment go forward. What we're having is hard finding workforce apartments. Workforce apartments are difficult to build. When the housing study come in, we want to have 17,000 housing units in this area in the next 10 years. And if you calculate that out, you almost have to have 1,000 to 1,200 every year built. Horace did a way of doing their apartments, which basically nobody but it will develop it, because as you learn over time, higher structures work better, more numbers work better, it pays off work better. You get a density of 94%, 94 per acre in some of the ones that we had that have worked out very well. So all I would ask you is when you look at that at some point, can we visit together or have a brown bag together at some time, and we'll go through our policy with you, and if we could have a joint policy, because I feel that the school and the city are very much adapting together. When we look at our tax exemptions and what's happened on a $10 million base property, we are now worth $400 million. So if it's $10 million, it's 40 to 1 return on investment. That increases the value for you. The other thing, commercial pays 1% higher in taxes than residential. City of Fargo has 52% commercial, 48% residential. So we're very cautious about who we give a tax break to and how it works, but on the ones we've done, it's worked very well for us. So we'd love to have an opportunity to explain what our policy is, go through it, educate your team, and when we get through that, if we could help out. The present project you have before you will not go forward if we don't give it a tax break. And what's been happening, the TIFs and the pilots have been coming from 25 to 20 to 15. They keep coming down because it's just that's the will of many of the people. We feel that it can make its money when it gets out to 10 to 15 years. But the thing I want you to think about is we don't have a lot of workforce apartments downtown, and this would be a great project. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney, appreciate it. And I do want to share with the board that when we get to this item, we do have some people online and some people in the audience who can answer questions if board members have questions when we get to that. Okay, so next up we have our reports, and we do not have anyone from the FEA. Hopefully they're all home in the warm safety of their homes. So next we will go to Dr. Steiner.
All right, thank you. Few different updates. Last Friday, we held our joint meeting with the West Fargo schools and Moorhead schools, focused on a variety of topics, and I'll just share kind of a quick update on those topics. We had a group meet kind of subcommittees, and one of those was about homeless youth. And what we found is we were trying to be more efficient, and we found out that probably the closer we work together, and actually will reduce our efficiency because transportation is probably the biggest barrier. And so they're going to continue to keep working together, probably won't be around transportation. But what we did have a really robust discussion about was how great of a job our schools are doing at feeding our kids or families that don't have a stable source of food going home. And Anne Marie doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to work with her and have her work with the communication people from the other districts to share that out, because it was really quite amazing when we started hearing the things people were doing to make sure families have that stability in their home. Spent a lot of time talking about special education. They love the Explorer Academy. I know that at the time might have been something that people questioned, but it truly is the mark for the state. And I can guarantee across the river, they would take that in the second, as well as their level D in Moorhead is in Fergus Falls, which you can imagine for transportation is a significant issue. And so we're going to continue to have conversations on what we could do to potentially expand space in a level D facility somewhere in the metro area with focusing on residential and secondary. Again, it will be a long play to get there, but something very worthwhile that everybody is seeing as a major need. We talked a lot about professional development, and the team that met, Mrs. Eidsness was part of that, created a master list of all the different PDs that we're doing across districts. And what we found is there's a lot of things that we could be doing together. And so one of those things is something around high reliability schools and personalized learning. And we have a team that will go over and join a training that's already existing in January that, again, cost-wise, we probably wouldn't have been able to do on our own, but we certainly can do with them. I'll give you another example. One is safety care. And we just met the other day, and we're the only one doing CPI. And this is really about what do you do when kids get to a heightened sense, and how do we, one, make sure we protect staff but protect the child. And we found out we can save a significant amount from safety care, and it actually probably aligns better with our catalyst approach. Again, it was just that kind of conversations that we weren't having that we now are. And we found some savings, but also probably found something that's going to be better for staff. And there's trainers in each district already. We spent time talking about alternative education and found out Moorhead's got some really great things going on over there that we're actually going to go over and try to visit and see some of their things, especially a middle school approach that they have. And I'm not saying we're doing this, but they do a 4-day week with their alternative high school, and that last day they're working on internships and work experiences, and they're having a lot of success with that. So I think there's some things we can learn on that. Then we spent a lot of time talking around dual credit, and really want to make sure that our expectations for universities are really clear. Not so much from the Minnesota side, they're well ahead of North Dakota in terms of what they do with dual credit, But just the idea that if we're going to work with NDSCS or NDSU or UND, we're going to set forth the guidelines and give that to them, where in the past it's been the other direction. But it really is about what we can provide for our kids. So we're going to just be a little more clear around that. And then we're going to try to get together and see about aligning calendars better in the future. Part of that is to share PD and share some of our staff. We need to be more aligned, and doesn't mean we have to be identical, but it is something that we've talked about. So the superintendent's going to get together and start talking about that. Dr. McKenna and I, Mr. Hand met with Sanford. We're continuing the conversation around a partnership on a potential clinic, and also expanding our partnership on human performance. So that's a class that's offered in our high schools where Sanford trainers are assisting our PE teachers, and has really been a difference maker in a couple of our schools. And so we're just talking about, could that get expanded and what would that look like? And Dr. McKenna's developed a survey. We're going to survey our staff and ask them some questions on if we could partner on medical services, what would that look like? What would our staff need? What would their families need? And what would be the long-term benefit? We're, again, a long ways down the road on this one, but feel really confident that we're engaging in really meaningful conversations. This week, you'll probably hear that we're going to release a video, and it's just going to share about where we're at with our budget. In terms of that process, it's going to go out to all staff, and really the challenge is going to be for staff to start talking to their principals or supervisors and share any ideas, any thoughts or reflections they have. That'll be pushed out. We'll ask them to watch at a staff meeting as we continue to work through trying to reduce our budget by that 2% number. Yesterday, we met with MSUM. MSUM is strongly considering honoring the North Dakota State Scholarship. And we had a really great conversation, Dr. Gross and I, Dr. Saar and Dr. Oden Heidi, about that and some other partnerships potentially that we could have. And again, anything that's good for our kids is good for our system. And then the Fargo Youth Initiative, I wasn't able to attend. I know Robin was. They met on Sunday, and the plan is still that Fargo Public Schools will take over the Fargo Youth Initiative starting in February, and that'll be handed over, and we've got a process that we're going through right now to get that accomplished, which will be wonderful. And our celebrations, a couple different ones. This is a citywide one, and actually I would even say countywide, but Fill the Dome this year raised 100,369 pounds of food and $45,000. I know we're all familiar with Fill the Dome, but Fill the Dome truly was a student-created initiative probably close to 20 years ago. And it at that point was the largest food and food raising thing in the country by kids. So, you know, when people say kids these days, I always say, yeah, you're right, kids these days. I mean, look what they accomplished and look what they did. The amount of people that will get fed because of that is very significant, and we should be really proud our kids play a major role in that. And it's also another example of great collaboration across districts. Our kids are on a group that has to work across districts, from the rurals to the private schools to other public schools in the area. It's just, it really truly is a model for how we can give back to our community. And then today, really cool thing, the Davies Choir Group, and I'm gonna draw a blank on the name, Anne Marie.
Vavaje.
There you go. Came and performed on the second floor for all of us, and they were simply magnificent. It was just a wonderful 15 minutes, and they were going around kind of doing a variety of different shows today. So those are a couple great celebrations.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for those updates. Next, looks like we're getting a Horace Mann Elementary School transition plan. Is that Missy?
So we have the transition plan in front of you. I just want to summarize a couple points and then take any questions. How fast this went from us saying that we needed to wait till December to have it come out. I thought, oh, maybe I'll get it out sooner. But the number of questions and people that we needed to visit with in making the transition plan, I'm glad we had the time. So that is appreciated. The main piece that we have here is that with Horace Mann closing, we have students that will need a home for 2 years as we build the new building. And so we looked at many different options. I think it took us 6 different plans to come up with one that where we could have the students together. So we think there's a win-win with continuing the split campus with the original Horseman, and Madison will become the home of the K through 2 students, and Roosevelt will be the home of the 3 through 5 students. One of the advantages it has is that all the kids who will be together in the new building will have a chance to be together even before they move in. One of the advantages we're looking forward to is that every group of teachers, because Madison has not had this advantage before, will have around, will be like a 3 teaching grade level. And that will give us a chance to make sure that even the Madison teachers get to practice in PLCs and all the practices that we've had in a building as small as they are. We've had to do some very unique things. Always looking at the transition this causes for students, we cannot avoid that. There are some transitions, depends on what grade level you enter in and exit in. As we go forward, though, the busing, we've worked with Valley Bus also, it'll change bus routes, but they are ahead of the game in getting that planned out. One of the pieces that we have seen is that we're offering a grandfathering for students that are currently in grades 2 through 4 this year. That would mean that the students that are shifting to Roosevelt and would like to finish at Roosevelt, we are allowing them to grandfather to stay. That could tip our sections maybe just a little bit, but we'll have that open until April 1st. But parents are responsible for transportation as we go forward. So those would probably be the highlights that we have going forward. We do hope to announce the principal of the new Horseman before winter break. So I'd like to take any questions or suggestions.
Questions or comments? Go ahead, Kristen.
So you're interviewing for principals right now? And that process is almost complete?
Yes.
Okay, that's exciting. Yes, Allie?
There we go. Sorry, I just bring this up. We talked about this a little bit in planning, and when Missy and I went through the different grade levels, I think that at most we were talking about 2 transitions for kiddos, and there wasn't any grade level that would be more than 2 moves, if you will, from building to building. So I think that was,
Yeah, as long as you're saying that they had you're counting the split campus.
yes, counting the split campus. So anyways, it just, again, minimizing the number of moves for kiddos where we possibly could. Like I said, Missy and I did the math, and we figured that it was pretty good, so.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Just quickly say, I know James and Bill helped out a great deal with this and want to say thank you to them. But Missy, I got to observe like the boundary stuff from afar last year and just got to watch it in action this year. And really, really wonderful work. Like people don't understand all the different things that have to be taken into account. And I think every single conversation we had is like, what can we do that's going to be best for kids and still going to benefit our families? So just appreciate that greatly, Missy.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, let's move along to our consent agenda. I'll look for approval. Robin?
I move approval of the consent agenda with the HC addendum.
Okay, we have a motion from Robin and a second from Nikki. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposition, same sign. That motion passes 9-0. Next, we are on our business items. Memo number 60, the bond sale result. I think, Jackie, are you talking to us about that?
I sure can. At your spot tonight was the revised memo for the bond sale. The bids were received today, and they came in at about a rate of 5%. The overall rate will be around 4%. There was a premium on sale of about $800,000. And we do have Ann Willett from PFM on the line. And she will go over the process and the results of sale with you further.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you so much. President Christensen Munier, Dr. Steiner, members of the board, and business manager Gap, thanks for having me. This morning we had the bond sale for, we went to market with about $9,930,000. We wanted to keep this bond issue as a bank qualified issue. We took bids at 10:30 this morning. We received 7 great market rate bids. The spread between the first and the 7th was less than 20 basis points, which tells us that we received very competitive bids, so we're very happy about that. Piper Sandler & Co. was the winning bidder. The true interest rate that they bid was at 4.06%. Because they bid a bigger premium than we originally had estimated, we actually had to revise the bond par amount down to 9.195 million. So the district is only issuing 9,195,000. And the issue price was just under 10 million, which is the threshold that we have to keep it under for a bank qualified issue. I think that is kind of the summary. Does anybody have any questions about the process or any of the other bids or anything like that?
Okay, do we have questions? Robin?
I have a question on the Moody's ratings. As part of the original packet that was presented to us, can you tell us more about our upgrade from AA3 to AA2? And of course, the benefits of that are better borrowing rates?
Yes, so the district's general obligation rating has been a AA2 for quite some time. But previously, bond counsel for building fund bonds, they used to, the district used to have to issue a limited tax bond when you were issuing bonds that are secured by the building fund. But with after John Arnson retired and Jim, those are now sold as general obligation bonds. And because of that, Moody's upgraded the limited tax rating on the previous bond issues to a AA2. So now it's on par with the regular general obligation rating. Does that make sense?
It does, thank
So
you.
for these bonds, the AA2 was already going to be in place, but just those previous bond issues, that rating was upgraded.
Oh, interesting, thank you. That makes more sense, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this topic? Okay, if we are ready, the recommendation is on that packet here, if we're ready for a motion. Nikki?
I move that we approve the sale of the general obligation building fund bonds, Series 2025, as presented, and to adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of the bonds.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Nikki and a second from Kristen. Any more discussion or questions? Okay, Anne Marie, can you call the roll, please?
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Olenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Christensen, Meineer.
Yes, and that motion passes 9-0. Okay, next we are moving to memo number 62, which is consideration of Central at the Horizon. I believe, Greg, you're going to introduce this, correct, as the Chair of Planning?
I surely can.
Okay, so before Greg gets started, I'm suspecting there is going to be some robust conversation on this particular topic. And just keep in mind that we do have a few people in the room and online who can answer questions if you have questions we want to seek from other people. Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Sure. I'm going to trust that most people are fairly familiar with this topic, given that we discussed it at planning. Last week, we've gotten a series of emails from a lot of folks, and it's been all over the newspaper. So I won't belabor the point other than to say that I really appreciate all the time that planning spent discussing this, and that as Katie just mentioned, I anticipate a lot of good discussion on this topic, which is this is the first time this particular board of 9 has encountered this topic. And Wouldn't you know, we're in the process of developing an internal policy for the board to guide decisions like this. But we do not have that to guide us at this time. So I apologize for not getting that done.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion, or should we just go straight to discussion?
I can make a motion
Okay.
to start us off. Coming from planning, the board or planning committee made this recommendation. So I will move that the board president notify the city of Fargo that Fargo Public Schools will not participate in the proposed tax incentives due to their duration and the relative community benefit.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Greg and a second from Ally. Do we have any discussion or questions? Melissa?
Yeah, thank you very much, Greg. So I have a few thoughts that I wanted to share that I started sharing at planning. My main concern is that my understanding is that this group has gone through the federal and state regulations to get the incentives, which are incredibly complex and incredibly difficult. My concern is that if we support the motion on the table, that this is going to send a message to the small handful of people that have the ability to do this that it's not worth it. Don't bother to try to get these incentives. I think this is a much more nuanced discussion than a binary yes, no, and unfortunately we can only vote yes or no. So I just wanted to share my thoughts as we're having this conversation. My other concern that I've learned through talking to people is that this is a former power plant, which limits its use. So there's not a lot of things that can be done on this site absent an incredible investment that might be too burdensome to overcome. So this might be a viable option on this site. I think when we were talking at planning, and I've seen some conversations online, I think sometimes people conflate the terms low-income housing and affordable housing, which are terms of art that have certain requirements with them. So although this is not low-income housing, it's going to be categorized as affordable housing, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't support a low-income housing project that would possibly come to us. So I want to keep in mind that this could benefit people, perhaps even new teachers that would work at the new Horace Mann School that want to live close to downtown and have a rental or living rate that is not more than 30% of their income. So I think this could possibly provide that for people. I don't think this project is perfect, but for me, I'm looking at this and I'm trying to make the least worst decision. And for me, what that's coming to is allowing this to go forward. It's an incredibly long tax deferment for this entity, and I will not disagree with that. But for me, what I'm looking at is what's currently the revenue that we're getting from that, which is $5,000 a year, and what's the potential revenue that we'd get if this project went forward, which is $5,000 a year. So for me, that is kind of the rubric that I'm using. One other comment that I'd like to make that was discussed in planning, which we want to, if anybody listened to that conversation, there's a comment about the potential of having new kids that would be living in this apartment complex that would be attending our schools, which I think is fantastic. We get a per pupil funding. If those kids come to our school, we're not at a loss. We want to welcome every student into this building. I think it's antithetical to what everything this board stands for to not want that. And I think for me, taking that to its logical extent, that's like saying, well, if somebody's not living in a building that's generating enough tax income for this, we're going to think really hard about whether or not they should be here. And I don't want to think that at all. So I've thought a lot about this, and I don't think that I can support the current motion on the floor, but I respect the conversation that we're about to have, and I respect what came from planning.
Okay. Kristen?
Yeah, thank you. when listening to the planning meeting and reading everything and taking everything in the packet that was provided us, um, I I tend to believe that this isn't the right project for downtown. Not saying that we wouldn't, like Melissa said, wouldn't support the right project that came before us. I don't necessarily believe when the packet, it's written all over the packet that this is low income housing. Can support somebody who makes or is income qualified at somebody who makes around $20 an hour. I don't necessarily think that this project is affordable for that person, especially when, taking into consideration the other fees. It's about 55% of somebody's rent to income ratio, and I don't believe that's feasible.
I think, so following up on that, I do believe we have Jim Gilmore here.
Yeah.
Can you answer a question then? Because I do know that there are vouchers available for renters. Can you share, tell us about that?
I can touch on that, but I do want to clarify your choices tonight are support the exemption, not support the exemption, or go into negotiation with the city. The state law allows really those three options. And so if you wanted to continue the discussion, that you're willing to do that. As far as vouchers, this is a low-income housing tax credit program, and it's really aimed at moderate income households, which is sort of that people that are at about 60% of the median income of the house. So, that's the definitions that HUD has, very low, moderate, and so that's that range. As far as the vouchers, this housing project will be required to accept anyone who have a housing voucher. So if someone goes to the housing authority or already has a housing voucher and they're looking at moving, when they move to this, they only have to pay 30% of their income for rent. And the housing authority would pay the difference. So I think I sent some examples that if the rents are $1,100 and they can afford to pay, $700, then the housing authority would provide the additional $400. I also have Chris from the housing authorities here who knows a lot more about vouchers than me. So I don't know, Chris, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think Jim really touched on the big parts of it. Oh, by the way, I'm Chris Brungart. I'm with Fargo Housing Redevelopment Authority, and the vouchers will their income their income restricted to 50% of the area median income, and then once you're qualified for that, you pay 30% of whatever your income is. So if you have no income, you're paying nothing for rent. We pick up the rest of that. This property, like Jim was saying, is required to take all vouchers. If there's a voucher holder going there and they want to move in there, they would be eligible to move in there. So.
Yeah, Kristen?
So follow up to that, I'm familiar with Section 8. I'm familiar, with voucher programs. I'd like to know, I read that the voucher waiting list is currently closed and will open again, right, this spring. How many does that allow for, number one? Number two, does it cover those extra fees, like your initial fees to move in? Moving isn't cheap. And I think when we talk about low income or affordable housing, I don't necessarily see a project like this fitting that mold. This seems just a little too expensive for me. But
Sure. I mean, it all just comes right down to the mathematics of it. If you take a look at the 60% AMI, which is, let's use round numbers so they're easy to do math. It's roughly 50,000 for one person is a maximum 60% AMI. So if you can pay 30% of your rent, you're paying what, $15,000 a year for 30% over 12 months. It's a little over $1,000. So that's how they come up with the rent for the one bedroom. So that is the mathematics behind this. So it's set for anybody who's at the 60% AMI pays 30% of their income towards it. Now I'm unfamiliar what their actual application was, but the low income housing tax credits allow it to be income averaging. So they can set up their units that they could have a certain X number would be 30% AMI units. So many units can be 80% AMI units, but they have to average out to be 60 when you do that mass balance on those. So I hope I answered your question and provided some type of clarity to it, but it's going to work the same way if you're a voucher holder. You know, Section 8 vouchers, the housing choice vouchers, you pay 30% of your income, and the income cap on that is 50%. So if you're at 50 AMI and you're paying 30% of that 50 AMI, so that the math's going to come, $900 a month. So that's just it reduces it, but it's not going to make it low income or affordable if that's what your definition is.
Okay. Greg, were you going to say something?
Maybe really quickly about the voucher thing. Are we greatly expanding the number of vouchers we're going to be offering by building this? I'm assuming the answer is no.
No, there's no increase in net vouchers out there. Actually, right now in the metro area, we're spending more than our allocation for our federal allocation for the voucher units. This is an important subject because you'll probably see me back here in about a month or two because we have an affordable housing project coming up, 14-4, which is a former public housing site. Now, difference ours will be 100% vouchered, but still, if someone's in there, that 50% AMI, they're still going to be paying 30%. So.
Okay, I know, oh, sorry, did you have a follow-up to that, or? Okay, Namal had a question, go ahead. Can you turn your mic on, please?
Right. So, thank Greg for bringing this forward, and we have talked about this at planning. And I think that I was in favor with this project, just as Brooklyn said. Sorry. For me is when I look into this and dig deep into it, there are a couple of things that are directly tied to Fargo Public School priorities. And especially like the housing affordable is now an educational issue. If I don't know if some of you are aware of it. When family can find and keep housing in Fargo, students are more likely to stay in our system, maintaining continuous with their teachers and grad with us. Supporting thoroughly planned housing like this is one of the way we can protect our student stabilities and learnings. The city data show that incentives have helped grow the overall tax base and kept property tax lower than otherwise would be. A larger, a healthy tax base give FPS, which is our Fargo Public School, more stability for long-term planning around staff, programming, facilities, which this board has identified as a key priorities. And I know that you all do. So basically what I'm saying is in this, when Fargo add well-planning housing, we help families. It's not only your family, other family too, from minority community, from diverse communities, stay in our communities. We stabilize enrollments and we grow the tax base that fund our classroom. I want Fargo Public School to be seen as a partnership in this work. So I support this incentive. I'm also asking that we deepen the FPS and the city because, when we look into this, we are part of a Fargo, the city of Fargo. And when we work separately, it show our community that we cannot work together. And that being said, it really show us as, even though we have our strong point of priority that we have here, I think this is one of the key crucials projects that we should support, and we can show our community that we can work together and collaborate and bring something good to the tables. So I'm not saying that it's the perfect, plan. I just think that, when we work together, it shows that we can support our community together. And if we don't do that, it shows that we don't work together as a elected board or as elected official or public servant. That's just how I see it. So It's up to you guys how you want to vote, but for me, I think that having affordable housing is a good thing. For a person like me, I used to be in a Section 8 as a single mom, and it hasn't been a perfect, but at the same time, it helped me go to schools, and I get to support my kids. And I think that there are some people who really want to sit on that, who want to stay around our city, especially in our downtown area. And if there's a way to support them, why not? If it can bring us more enrollments to our public school, why should we not support that? Like I said, this is individual's personal vote, but that's how I see it.
Okay, thank you, Namal, for those comments. Ally? Is your mic on?
It was on, sorry. I hit the button and then I don't know, sorry. Thank you. So I will be supporting this motion this evening of not participating in the proposed tax incentive for a number of reasons. Number one, really when we look at the number of TIFs and pilots and things like that we have, if you look at the basic math of things in terms of how we calculate our mills, and we all know that we have a potential bond referendum coming up in 2028. So the total dollars that we're getting from the mill calculation in easy math form, if we say we have total taxable value of $1 million and then a mill is worth 1,000, by taking these properties off the books, or giving them pilots or in lieu of taxes, our mill is essentially worth less. So therefore, we have to ask for more mills to get the amount of money that we need to function in our district. This essentially is what is being asked of us as a board, is to say the money that we are giving to this project, to this developer, is being taken away from things that we need money for today. We have buildings that we need to repair. We have teachers to pay, bus routes to move forward with. I guess to me, I'm willing to invest in teachers and bus routes and things that our kids need today, and I'm not willing to invest in a 20-year project to Kristen's point, is not low income. So that's where I'm at with this, and I thank you for the work of the Planning Committee for vetting this and bringing forward this recommendation.
Robin?
Thank you for everybody's comments. I would say my vote will not be based on the merits of this project itself. I have complete faith in our planning committee members and the administration and their ability to deeply analyze and make recommendations on the direction or the policy on this topic. And at the same time, I think what prompted these conversations is we have to look at our budgets right now very closely, and we need to analyze those. And that prompted this conversation about analyzing our policies, which indirectly would then have us analyze each project. At the same time, they're working on reversing the budget deficit, among other things. That said, I will support this motion to deny this project until the pending policy discussion is complete. Again, I'm not considering the merits of the project, but we need a policy in place before we move forward. Therefore, I will not be supporting any of these projects until the policy comes forth to the board. Thank you.
Melissa, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just had a question, and thank you, Ally, for your comments, because this is where my question is coming from. And it's also more directed at Jackie. So my understanding has been that if the overall value of property increases, then the value of a mill will increase. So that if this property raises the value of property, then it could also raise the value of mills.
Correct. So if the 20-year exemption would be granted, the district is in no different place than it is today. $5,500 on the value of the land. Once a building goes up, right, that's when the exemption is being asked for. And so that we will not get that revenue until it comes on the rolls. But for the 20 years, if nothing else happened to that land, we'd be in the same exact place we are today.
Okay, Greg?
We'd be where we are today on the revenue side. But our expenditures are likely to increase. And
Why would our expenditures increase?
so if we have more housing in Fargo, we have more pupils in Fargo.
We don't know that. We don't know if they're coming from within
Well, they,
the district or not.
sure,
One person needs to have the floor at a time.
Okay.
sure. I mean, yeah, we don't know if, every K-12 person that is going to live there is moving from Fargo, or if they're coming from Moorhead or West Fargo. But I think it stands to reason that as we build more things, let's say instead of 300 units, we added 10,000 units, right? Some of them are not going to come from Fargo. It's a big metro. If the vouchers or the below market rent is as attractive as we're being told it is, I really assume we're going to get people from around the metro who are going to want to live there. So whether it's 10 students or 30 students, however many new to our district students there are, those expenses are going to go up. I think Melissa's point is valid that, we're not going to just reject students because the bed they sleep in doesn't generate tax revenue. But if pushed to, again, beyond a 300 unit building, it is unsustainable to continuously add new students without the revenue. And yes, we get per pupil revenue from the state, but that is maybe 60% of our revenue. If per pupil revenue from the state was sufficient, we would charge no property taxes, right? So I think it's important to, yes, acknowledge that our revenue is either going to stay the same for 25 years or at year 20 it'll go up. But the expenses do not stay the same.
Namal?
So back to that question, I'm glad that you brought up what Melissa said. So let's say, for example, that we don't have this building off in, it's not going to be built off in downtown Fargo. So they build it elsewhere. And and it's almost the same concept as this. And we have a ton of students there. Would you still turn them away because of if these tax incentive didn't go the way that you wanted?
Is the
I'm not
question
sure I
directed
understand.
at me?
Who's
So
the
are you
question?
saying like
Who's the question
Are we
too?
supposed to answer that?
if they build it
Yes.
in West Fargo?
No,
and-
I'm
and
saying
those
I'm
students
saying
still-
that if they build it within our Fargo districts, right? Let's say, for example, this building that is being built that we are voting on or we're talking about, right, is being built elsewhere beside of the downtown Fargo, right? Are you following me?
Mhm.
So basically, are you saying that this 300 unit buildings and we have children over there, would you turn them away just because the way that this tax is being incentive or the incentive being presented?
Well, we can't turn any student away if they live within our district.
Well, I'm saying the same thing. There would be possibility there would be some student that would be living in the downtown Fargo. So what would be the difference? You turning those student away too?
We're not turning any students away. I think what we're talking about is, I think Greg's concern is that we are not getting taxes from that particular building. And so that we could potentially have pupils living in a building where we're not getting property tax to help support our district.
I think that I'm actually talking I'm putting it exactly as it is. It's just you did not get it the way that I'm talking about what I'm talking about. So basically, we're talking about the same thing. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. Ally, did you have something you wanted to add? Or
A little bit. I just was going to follow up in terms of the what if scenario in 20 years, I guess. So this is probably more a question for the folks from the city. One of the things that we discussed during the planning committee meeting that I think is also very relevant, we talk about the potential future income in the 20-year time frame. How many of these buildings have come off of these pilots or these TIF incentive funds and actually have been publicly owned? Because my understanding is that majority of them actually move over to a nonprofit status, and then we don't receive the income then either. So we actually never receive the magical 20-year money that we're supposed to get from these things.
There's only one other example, and it's one that you supported 2 years ago. That's Prairie Ridge Apartments out in southwest Fargo. It's 120 units of senior housing. That one's a couple years in. We don't really know what the developer will do at that point. He could sell it to a nonprofit where it's tax exempt. He could make it market housing, so that could change. Now, the one you'll see from Chris and the Housing Authority, you're right on that. They will need 100% exemption for 15 years, then it'll become public housing. If you expect to charge $200 a month property taxes per unit, the house will not be affordable for someone in very low income. Because when the city assessor looks at this
Can we stop
building-
using low income, because we've determined that this is moderate income? So let's make sure that we're having a conversation about the right thing.
I'm giving you the example of a low income that changes. Yes, that will likely. Moderate income, we don't have that many of these. This only other one is Prairie Ridge. I don't know what's going to happen in 15 years. It may become market rate housing. It may not.
But how many have we had on the books that have been given this approval, or these pilot assessment approvals, and that have come off the books? And how many of them have actually gone to market rate, or how many of them have gone to nonprofits afterwards? Because my research shows that any of them that have come off have all gone the nonprofit route. There was 3 of them that I was able to find.
The ones that are low income, you're right, they have come off, and they are no. The ones that are moderate, I only have that one example. That's the only one. It's extremely hard to put together the financing package for a moderate income housing project that's going to provide sort of that middle income person that's not extremely low income and not fairly well off to afford market rate housing. So we don't have many of these other than that one out in southwest Fargo, 120 units.
So we don't
Only-
have any that have come off the books that have actually gone to market.
No, again, it's a program that's not been used in Fargo other than this one unit out in southwest Fargo.
So the magical 20-year money has never come to fruition in any of these that we've approved in the past.
Well, there's only one, and it's only 2 years old, so we don't know. You can ask me in 18 years, I don't be able to tell you.
Point of order. It is not appropriate for board members to send emails amongst us during a discussion to try to convince us or educate us on the topic at hand.
Okay, I apologize for that. I sent that email, and what the email is those are the examples that Jim Gilmore shared with me that I'm passing along to the board. So I apologize if I broke policy or rules here. I should have put more information in there when I asked him the question about scenarios. These are the scenarios that he shared with me earlier that I was going to provide with the board so you can see some examples of how the voucher would work. That's what the point of that is. Greg?
I have some questions for, we have PFM on.
Yeah,
the line.
there are some people online.
Yeah, Matt Schachtenberger from PFM. PFM who use your bonds, we use him for these but-for tests. So Matt.
Yep, good evening.
Hello. I'm wondering, the but-for test, I'm trying to wrap my head around maybe how strict it is or how squishy it might be. You know, like, I read it and ostensibly a but-for test is like, hey, this is what they're asking for, and if they don't get it, they're not going to do it. It's impossible. And we already know that the full request for tax incentives is not going to happen because Cass County already declined that to participate. And I'm wondering, is it still possible to have this project go forward without the county's involvement? And if it is possible, what does that look like? And what part of the but-for test may have had more wiggle room than anticipated?
Yeah, on the county question, those numbers have not been run without their participation. I can tell you, maybe it'd be helpful if I give you a little bit of background on what we do and how we do it, our process. Would that be helpful?
Sure.
So we take the application, we take the information from, excuse me, from the developer. We come up with our own independent pro forma, and we that will go out for the term of the proposed tax incentives. We then run it with and without public assistance. And really for this affordable housing project, we look at one main metric, financial metric, and that is debt service coverage. Can the revenues from this project support the debt payments that are needed to build this project? And without public assistance, we looked at the debt service coverage. For several of the years, it was not even 1 times, and then it did eventually, in 8 or 9 years, it did build up to that 1 times coverage. Oftentimes, banks or the holders of the debt want to see a minimum of a 1.2 times coverage. When looking at the scenario with the public assistance, it does meet that 1.2 times coverage. I would have to run the numbers with if we took out the county portion of that.
Do you independently evaluate the reasonableness of the numbers that the developer gives you? Is like I'm thinking, is 38% of gross operating income a industry standard as far as what it costs to run this type of facility?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I should have touched on that, but yes, we do use our own assumptions. We do make sure that the applicant is using reasonable assumptions, but we do use our own. If they are significantly different than what the developer or the applicant has stated, we question that, and we do have discussions with the applicant to figure that out. But yes, these are independent assumptions that we have made. They were basically in line for the most part with the applicant for this. And I'm sorry, the second part of the question.
I think that covered it as far as that particular question.
Okay, I have a question for the planning committee. Well, I guess that's Greg then. I think my concern with this particular action is I would prefer to have a policy in place. I would prefer that we discuss what our priorities are and have that policy in place so we can communicate that to the city for their planning purposes, instead of changing basically the practice that we've been following for multiple years now.
I wholeheartedly agree. I would love us to have a policy in place. We have been working on developing just that policy. But we have to respond to this within 30 days, and that policy is not in place in time to make that decision.
I understand that. I think what I'm looking at is our partnership with the city and the elected boards that we have in this region. And if they put a lot of time and effort, clearly, because some of these approvals take a lot of time and effort to get to this point, I think it would have been better for us. I think it would be I think it's good practice and good partnership if we make them aware of changes in our practices before they go out and put all this time and effort into getting to where they are with this practice. So I'm in a place where I am not going to vote in favor of this motion or anything similar to this until we have a policy that we have thoroughly vetted and that we are going to be able to communicate to our partners. My other concern right now is even sitting in this room, there are a lot of questions about the process. So I think we as a board, I think we need to be more educated and have more conversations with the people who work and seek out these TIFs and pilots before we get into a place where we start intervening. That's just where I am. Are there other questions or comments? Kristen?
Yeah, does our timeline allow for the development of a policy? So
No, we have to respond. So
Yeah, so
typically
what-
what we do, so no response is basically accepting. And that's what we have done for multiple years is that 30-day window. We just don't respond. So that's why to me, it feels really hasty and truthfully, it feels like it's not very good practice. It feels like it's good practice and bad partnership to choose this one right now where we're going to stop and intervene without any type of board education or policy in place.
We've had board education, planning committee months ago, and actually 3 months now in succession have dedicated time to making sure that we are educated on this topic.
Okay. Allie?
I was just going to say, we are in the process of developing a policy around this. Board Member Nelson brought this to our attention that the county recently revised their policy and stance on how they handle these types of incentive requests due to the changes in our property taxes that have come down from the state legislature. So we had a massive change in how we basically get paid, or our source of income and our source of revenue. And so to Greg's point, the planning committee has been doing the work on this. We do have a tentative policy in place that we've got in a draft format. We haven't had a chance to formalize it and bring it to the board because it does take time to develop these types of policies. So we are in the process of bringing this forward. I realize we don't have one formally in place at this point in time that we can clearly communicate out, but there is a dramatic need for us to be able to put something in place to be able to handle these things moving forward, just due to the changes in property taxes. And since we didn't have a policy beforehand, we were left starting from scratch to be able to develop one. So we used time to educate ourselves and then put one in place. So I can understand where you're coming from on this. And that's your choice to vote the way that you want to vote. But
Well, and so just to clarify, I do think that we need a policy, and I'm very open to a policy that says we'll do a 50% pilot for 10 years, or we won't approve anything beyond 5 years. I am 100% open to that. We talked about it at governance, sent it to planning for that purpose. My concern is I think we should have that in place to communicate that to our partners who do the work before we start intervening and making decisions. That's where I stand on this tonight. Go ahead.
I think it's also important to acknowledge that, yeah, this is a deviation from what this board has typically done in the past. And I think to no small measure, it is somewhat unfair to our partners in the city to deviate from past practice, especially when we don't have a written policy 100% in place. But I also think it's important to acknowledge that things have changed. And since I've been on this board, it's like 2 or 3 that we've had come through that, yeah, we were like, yep, we just kind of always approve these and, here you go. But at that time, we were not in a deficit budget. We did not have a cap on our property tax authority that was imposed by the state legislature. So yes, we are deviating from past practice, but it's not for no reason. We are in a materially different financial position than we had been in the past. And I think that maybe heightens the scrutiny that we're going to be giving projects like these when we're more sensitive towards our deficit.
Robin?
I would caution everybody on making comments about how much one person or one committee knows, and if they need to be educated. They're insinuating that the planning committee, just because they disagree, does not mean they are not informed, nor are they educated on this topic. So I really want to caution us on that, and it's okay to disagree within a committee. That does not mean anybody knows more or less. Thank you.
Okay, other comments?
Can we lay out the timeline, or what happens if we say, we take no action?
If we take no action, then the TIF and pilot basically will go into effect and they'll move forward with their project. If we decline it, then they got some conversations that need to happen.
So I know that much. Can you talk about what did we talk about when you said that there's negotiation, or I just want to know more about that.
The state law gives you, the third option is to, participate and say you're going to participate, or just decline to not participate, or to, enter into negotiations with the city and the developer to see if he could come up with a compromise so that, is some other percentage, is some other term of years, is that possible by adjusting the affordability period or something like that? And I think the city and Mayor Mahoney would welcome this discussion when you don't have a policy, because, perhaps there's a compromise that can come about so the project could still happen. If you definitely hate the project and no way you don't want affordable or moderate income housing in town, then you would reject this.
Yeah, come on.
Can I make a point?
You can make a point, and then I think Greg has a question for our attorney.
Just understand, in the past, sometimes when we've had these discussions, either with the county or with the school, we normally would sit down as a group and try to figure out what works. Because you heard them talk about affordability and have to have it over a certain ratio. So maybe 10 years works, maybe 12 years works, maybe something else works. We've done things like sometimes we do a 5-year Renaissance zone, and then we do 75%, 50%, to 25%. We do it in different things. I did want to clarify one thing. On average, in the city of Fargo, we have increased values, property values by 7% a year. So if you follow that on average, your revenue doesn't go flat. You continue to grow in your revenue because our mill levies go up. Second thing is the land is still taxed. So your tax, if this lot sits here today and we don't do anything, it'll still pay you the same revenue theoretically you had. If they put an apartment complex in there, it actually will go up. It won't go down because the land value will go up because it has a property there. But we'd be more than happy to sit down with whoever you want in your negotiation team. Hey, let's figure out if something can work that the school board could support.
Go ahead, Greg.
So it's come up several times that kind of one of the unfortunate snags is timing right now. And I'm wondering if Tara may know that if there is, if we end up saying that we would like to negotiate, we're not rejecting the pilot as presented, we're not accepting the pilot as presented, we would like to negotiate, does that negotiation still have to take place within that original 30-day timeline?
So my understanding is you just have to give notice of the intent to negotiate within the 30-day timeline, and then the negotiations proceed forward. I don't believe the 30 days applies to the duration of the negotiation.
Our practice with the county has been that they will notify they're not going to participate at this time, but continue negotiations is essentially the motion that they would make. And then later they would either decide to not participate or participate.
Would the negotiations committee do that, or would that be the full board?
So essentially what state law says is that the governing bodies of the affected county or school district negotiate the terms. You could appoint a committee to do that, or you could say one of our already present committees can negotiate, or you could direct myself and yourself to negotiate.
Okay. Robin?
What would prevent this group, if we were to turn this down, just to come back to us with another proposal after we have our policy written? I see that as an avenue as well. I'm not interested in entering into negotiation process at this point.
Namal?
I want to clarify that I apologize for the way that I asked my question. And thank you, Ms. Nelson, for bringing that issues up, that we are educated in this topics. Just because I asked a question and you all did not understand, it's not because I'm not educated in this topic. I am very educated on this topic and I'm very aware of it. So that being said, just like Ms. Nelson said, we need to be really careful how you point things out about others, and really try to understand the significance of the word that you say among others. First of all, I'm the only diverse person in here. Second, there's a lot of things that I'm learning in this city that I'm not aware of most of the time. Majority of you in here have an upper hand before me, and you educate each other about it. So be careful of the word that you say. If you are in another country right now, you probably will be unaware too of how you ask your question. And I bet you a lot of people that are out there, they really understand the question that I asked too. Just because I'm saying this, if there are 300 units is being built within our districts, and I'm reframing it for you. 300 units, if they are being built in our districts, not in downtown Fargo, but in our districts, would you turn those kids away? And I'm asking all of you that question. That's the question that I was asking. But that's being said, I think that I really appreciate all the resources that you have provided to us, and also to the planning committee for bringing this project forward and to educate us on it, and to really understand what's going on with it. Yes, we do disagree on it, and that's one of the reasons why our president, bring it forward here so we can all discuss it. It's not because we are not educated in this, we are educated in this. And forgive me, I do have a second language, and I have more than one language that I speak. So make sure that when you speak regarding me, I have more different different information that are like in my head, spinning, how can I be really questioning this? So just be careful.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
I'd like to call the question.
Second. Okay, yeah, we need a second. Okay, so we have call the question from Jason and a second from Ally. So this will be a roll call vote, and if you vote yes, then we'll just go straight into voting on the motion, and if you vote no, then we continue conversation. Anne Marie, can you call the roll?
Yes, so we're calling the roll on previous question.
Correct.
Kristen Nelson?
What's the previous question? Sorry,
The-
I just want to be super clear.
We're calling the roll on previous question, so if this passes, then discussion ends on the topic on the floor, and you move directly to taking a motion, a vote on the motion on the floor. If this fails, then you continue your discussion. So you're voting to decide to cease speaking on this topic.
Yes.
You voted yes? Thank you. Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Olenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Clark,
No.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
No.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Christensen Meineer.
Yes. So that motion passes 7-2.
Correct.
So now we will go straight back to the recommendation that the board president notify the city of Fargo that Fargo Public Schools will not participate in the proposed tax incentives due to their duration and the relative community benefit. Please note that the word "not" is in this. So voting yes is you are voting to not participate in the proposed tax incentives. Okay, are we clear on the yes and the no for that? Okay. All right, Anne Marie, will
Nikki
you
have a
call the roll,
question about-
please? Oh,
How to vote?
sorry.
Nikki, you had your hand up.
Yeah, can I ask a question, given where
About
we're at?
voting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we vote yes, what happens? If we vote no, what happens?
Good question. Okay,
Maybe we could-
voting?
Maybe we could restate the motion on the
Sure,
floor.
I just read it. So voting yes means that the Fargo Public Schools will not participate in the proposed tax incentive. Voting no means that the Fargo Public Schools will.
No, it means that that motion fails.
Okay, it means that the motion fails. Okay, thank you. It means that the motion fails.
Okay, so my question is, if this does not get passed, can the city come back to us and still further talk to us, or we're out, period?
If the motion fails, if you vote no and the motion fails, nothing has happened.
Okay,
So at that time, either a new motion would need to be put on the floor, or if no action is taken in the 30-day allotment given to us, then we would be approving the tax incentive. Does that make sense to everyone?
In a roundabout way.
Yeah. The action in front of you is to vote down or support of this motion.
Yeah. And the motion is to not participate in the proposed tax incentives. So are we ready now? Okay, Anne Marie, do you want to call the roll, please?
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Olenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
No.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
No.
Gullickson,
no.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Christensen Meineer.
No. The motion passes 5-4. Okay. The next thing on our agenda is strategic planning. That is memo 61, and that comes from me. We just engaged in a presentation from EAB. You can see there's a recommendation in here. I'll look to see if somebody would like to make that to direct the superintendent to continue working on these efforts. Melissa?
I move that the board direct the superintendent Steiner to work with the EAB to continue work on strategic planning efforts for the Fargo Public Schools.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Melissa and a second from Namal. Any discussion? Greg?
Yeah, I really thought the presentation we had earlier was good. I really enjoyed that. But I still find myself wondering why EAB? There's no shortage of strategic planning consultants that will gladly help us for some amount of fee. I'm just wondering why EAB or why any outside consultant?
Yeah, good question, Greg. EAB is a group we already have a membership with. That's something that was in place when I got to the district. Do a lot of great work around attendance. You heard them talk about their math lab. They do a lot of good work around that. With our budget, we didn't feel going out to an outside consultant that would actually run the strategic planning process, build the strategic plan, put all that together, was a responsible use of our funds. Since EAB was an existing membership, I don't see them as consulting as much as they're leading the conversations or facilitating the conversations for us. If you guys said no, then my question would just be, then can I do it? I mean, to be honest with you, but ultimately, because they're a membership, we think having them come in and facilitate the discussions, that's why. I will say they're not going to lead the strategic planning process. That's really my job. But they're going to assist and help facilitate the discussions and give us the process that then we can take and move forward. But you're right. I mean, the cost in terms of we already had that membership was nice. I've seen things from $15,000 on the low side to $150,000 for consulting for strategic planning. So.
Nikki?
And because we have this membership, there is no additional charge over and above, if I remember right.
Yeah, we asked Jen that, Dr. Slavic that specifically. And so they said the only cost that you occasionally could incur that's more is if we went above and beyond of how many times we wanted them to come here. But if you look, they're basically talking 3 times, depending on what model we have. And some of that they can facilitate virtually as well. And you can see she's pretty good at that.
Okay, other questions? Okay, Anne Marie, can you call the roll?
Ollenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Christensen Meinier.
Yes, that motion passes 9-0. Okay, and that takes us to our board reports, committee liaison and correspondence reports. And tonight I am going to start with Ally.
Nothing to report.
Okay, Jason?
I attended a planning meeting last week. We had a very robust discussion. And that is all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Namal?
Yes, I attended the planning committee, advocacy committee meetings. Yeah, I guess we'll stop there. Thank you.
Nikki?
Thank you. Governance yesterday, and then my liaison schools, Claire Barton and Hawthorne, I will be meeting with next week. I've reached out to Centennial, but have not heard back yet.
Thank you. Robin?
Yes, this is upcoming, just because I want to make sure everybody has it in their calendar. December 16th is the legislator info session. I'm going to be doing a little follow-up, just some extra pushes. We have 11 out of 26 that are attending right now, so we'll get to work on that. And I know that oftentimes people share stuff that's not exactly their liaison, so I just want to share that I went to a delightful Christmas musical at Bennon Elementary last night for my granddaughter. And I cherish those times, and it's pretty special what we do in Fargo Public Schools. Thank you.
Greg?
Nothing to really mention outside of committee work. As planning chair, I think maybe the only thing I'd want to highlight is that the deficit spending and spending reduction efforts that we've been going through and directed admin to really take on is their efforts are wrapping up. And we should sometime, I believe in January or February, have a pretty robust proposal for making sure that we are no longer deficit spending next school year. So everybody can be on the lookout for that.
Thank you. Melissa?
Yeah, so last week, Dr. Steiner and Jackie and I met to prep for our negotiations committee meeting. We are having kind of learning sessions at each of our meetings, and this was about the budget and more directly, how is our budget calculated? Like, what are the triangles that are in place to get us to what our overall spend is? And then what are we spending on salaries and then on teacher salaries? And we had a really great discussion at our negotiations committee meeting. That conversation is going to continue and be more about the costs of the matrix that we're using at our January meeting. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Kristen?
Outside of emails and doing work from home, nothing to report.
Okay. So yeah, we hope you are resting and recovering.
I have a correction on mine. Just only planning, please. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, sorry, was that, you're done? Okay, thank you. Okay, for my president's report, I'll share that governance met yesterday. We are discussing some potential changes to an EL policy regarding notification and time related to reclassification in terms of who is and isn't on the contract. There'll probably be information coming later. And then we also had a really wonderful presentation from Bob, which is like the accumulation of many, many, many meetings and many, many drafts on the middle school new schedule. And he'll be sharing that with the full board on January 13th. So that is an exciting project finally coming to an end. And then the last thing I'll say is this is our last, we have our one and only meeting in December. So our next meeting is actually January 13th. So I wish you all a very happy holiday season, and it is 6:57 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.